Stop what you're doing and come here. Sit down. There. I wish to speak with you. I was watching you just now, going about your chores, and I began thinking of how I'm both pleased and proud of how much you've changed, and that it was time that I told you so. Shh. Don't interrupt. When I first brought you here, you fought so hard against your new life, against me. You were a lot of trouble. More than once I thought perhaps I should simply devour your blood and dispose of your carcass. Oh, you didn't know that? Oh yes, you were quite troublesome. But through all that I saw you had intelligence. More than average. It had been my intent to acquire someone intelligent, but I've learned since then that I got better than I'd hoped for. Don't let that go to your head. You knew you were smart to begin with, didn't you? And smugness never looks pretty. Don't ever let that become part of your character. Good. Now, to continue my train of thought. Servants I've had before, but seldom were they worthy of entrusting with more than simple tasks. If they'd ever had any intelligence or creativity, someone had smashed it while breaking them into their new life. Or more likely, they were simply taken from the human population because they had no real talents and were dim-witted and easily programmed. After those disappointments, I chose to live without servants, alone. No, I enjoyed being by myself. As a matter of fact, most vampires do. I did too for a very long time, and the memory of those past disappointments kept me thinking I was much better off alone. What changed my mind? I don't have an answer for that. At least, not one I'd feel comfortable talking about now. No need to be sorry for asking. I've always tried to answer your questions, satisfy your curiosity. One day I will tell you about it, I promise. Yes, you have learned to be patient, or perhaps that was always in you, whenever you knew it would eventually earn its reward. For now, I'll only say that, for reasons of my own, I decided that I wanted company again. But what I wanted was far more than the mediocre competence my kind settles for. I wanted someone with intelligence, not spoiled by heavy-handed conditioning. It wasn't possible to repair another easily acquired but crippled creature. I'd have to do the selection and training myself, so I went hunting for a wild human. Yes, you were dirty, but also you were wild. By wild, I mean a human from outside my community. It's not an insult. It wasn't as easy as hunting for feeding. I couldn't simply take the first one I could find. I had to observe and compare among what I had found, and choose what traits I would place the most value on. No, you didn't look like much at first. But you were orphaned. That was an intentionally chosen parameter, and a plus. And you were miserable, living in a trash can. Not a trash can? Well then, what is a dumpster except an overgrown trash can? Right, a big trash can. Imagine how much longer you might have fought me if your previous life had been safe and pleasant. There were several I observed before you, but you seem to be the most miserable. And angry. You don't see how anger was a plus? No, perhaps not, since you didn't see the other candidates. Some of those were angry too, but they were simply angry they didn't have a better life. Your anger, when I listened to you, it was different. Anger for not having an opportunity to prove yourself, instead of from merely being cold or hungry. I heard an angry desire to prove yourself. I heard ambition. That seemed to me to be the right stuff to try to work with. Yes, I decided to give you your opportunity. But you didn't. You couldn't understand. You even thought you wanted to escape me and return to that misery. Well, you didn't really know what I intended to do to you, did you? And you were afraid to believe anything I told you. Not unwise of you, of course. After all, you'd learned what I am. You knew death was a possibility, and you wanted to live. In spite of all life had dumped upon you, you wanted to live. I know, you couldn't possibly understand the situation. I had anticipated that. But you even thought it was possible to resist me. But that was mere ignorance. What you didn't know was how I could have bent your mind and broken you in your sleep. And no human can resist sleeping forever. I could have done that to you. You almost seemed to want that. To be willing to be crushed before you'd give an inch. But I'd chosen to win you softly. I knew what the other methods resulted in. The only question was whether you'd let me, and whether you'd willingly choose to stay with me. It took time, yes, it did. I knew my task wouldn't be easy or quick, but it was the only way you could remain your own self with your memories and feelings intact. A real human being, instead of a frightened shadow of one. So I was prepared to take the time and be patient with you. I thought then that you'd be a much more interesting pet that way. Yes, a pet. You didn't know you were going to be just a pet. You see, my perfect pet, my fantasy, was a human who submitted to me and stayed with me freely. Someone I would keep alive and care for and share many happy years. Someone bright and alert. Someone I'd find interesting. Someone who might even find me interesting. That was the original plan, but as I said before, I got more than I expected. Yes, more than I expected. Because you're not just the pet. Pets are amusing company, but you've proven to be more than just that. Much more. You see how I've been putting things into your hands? Giving you responsibilities? Right. And would I do that for just a pet? There. See? I won't insult you by calling you my pet. Unless you want me to. As an endearment. Shh. Don't interrupt. This is difficult enough for me to get through. Vampires don't usually praise their... Well, we don't have... You're trustworthy and you're competent. You may have noticed how after you've been given a new task, I rarely inspect your performance. You showed me that I don't have to. But I have been watching you closely, nevertheless. I've given you enough rope, as they say, to allow you to hang yourself. If you intended to betray me... Shh. Hush. You needn't protest. I already know where your loyalty lies now. The word that was hard to find. You see, vampires don't usually get to praise a companion, a friend. That's why I hadn't told you before now of how proud I am of you. I should have. Do you Understand? Yes, I know. The sun will rise shortly and I will retire. Don't worry about me, although I like it that you do. But before I sleep, I must tell you something else. I'm making some changes. This is the other reason I wanted to speak to you. For one, this time you will not be shut away in your room while I sleep. You can go there if you like, of course, or you can do whatever tasks you think need doing instead. That's right, you'll be on your own, to watch over the household, and over me. This will be your first time with so much responsibility, although there's likely to be little to do except be observant and wakeful. Daytime is your natural environment. Should be quite easy. In the night, I shall protect you, as I always have, for that is my natural environment. Just manage things as though I were awake, or as if the household was your own. Call for the authorities if a threat should appear outside, but, of course, they cannot under any circumstance be allowed to enter while I sleep. Now, why haven't you asked the big question? Whether you'll be locked inside or whether you can get outdoors if you wanted, The answer, dear, is that it will be possible for you to run. Although you know I'd find you before you saw another sunrise if you did. But I know you now. There's nothing out there that calls to you anymore. Thank you for saying that. Yes, this is your home. I know you realize the significance of this new arrangement. I am placing a great deal more trust in you. For a long time, I've given you, as they say, a long leash. Now I'm taking that leash off. You've been a fine servant thus far. You've come to mean more to me than any pet or servant ever could. Now, I want you to be my friend. Perhaps even more, in time. I would like that. So, don't disappoint me, all right? It would break my heart to have to kill you after all this.